Good morning. I hope everybody's off to a great morning. I am looking forward to spending a few minutes with those that join us and those that watch later. Today, I have a really interesting topic, and I'll tell you before I start, I'm somewhat conflicted about this topic. And my topic today is on zombie mortgages. And let me give you some background and explain what a zombie mortgage is, and then how it's causing all sorts of anxiety in the marketplace, and then maybe discuss what we can do about it. So here's when we start talking about zombie mortgages. Here's what we're talking about. Back before the great recession, a lot of people were buying houses at the top of the market, and they're using 100% financing, right? And so somebody might buy a house, $400,000 house, use 100% financing, 80% first, 20% second, and then 2008 came around, the market turned, and some markets lost as much as 40% value. But regardless of the market, almost every market saw declines, which meant that if you had 100% financing, you are now upside down. You owed more in your house than it was worth. Well, for those people that had seconds, this became a really interesting dilemma because now they owed more than it was worth, and their housing payment might have been unaffordable. And so many opted to quit making payments on their second. Now, what happens is the lien holders on the seconds had very little recourse at this point because if you're in second position, in order to foreclose on a home, you have to pay off the first position. So let's say that in that example of a $400,000 purchase, the first is $320,000 and the second is $80,000, right? And let's say the property value dropped to $300,000. Well, if I'm in the second position, I have to pay the first off $320,000. And yet, if I can't collect, what that means, I foreclosed the house for 300, I had to spend an extra 20,000 to pay off the first and get no money back myself. And that second lien now had no value, right? Because the collateral was negative. And as homeowners realized that, they said, "Heck, I owe more than it's worth on the house. You can take it if you want it, but I'm not paying any money on my second, right?" And the lien holders had no recourse. They could huff and puff, but they certainly weren't going to foreclose and lose money to foreclose. And it became more complicated than that because as these lien holders for the second, these companies that specialize in seconds, they started, a lot of them were subprime. They started to go out of business. So even if I wanted to make a payment on my second, I didn't know where to make it. Like if it was Saxon or whoever, they were defunct now. They were out of business. And so I didn't have a place to actually, I couldn't figure out where to send my payment even if I wanted to. And then I said, well, gosh, that company's out of business. They haven't been sending me a bill. I must not owe it, right? So in the first situation, I'm upside down. You can take my house. Nobody wants to take it because they'll end up losing money. The second situation is, heck, I don't even know where to send my bill. The company I owe it to is no longer in business. It's at some point it's fallen off my credit report. I must be fine, right? And then there was cases where homeowners actually try to get bankruptcy relief and scrub the second off their property. Although that you can't do that in every state, and you have to. There's only a few times in which you can actually scrub a second, and most people didn't. Unfortunately, they didn't apply bankruptcy in the correct way to scrub the second. So there's a population of people that thought they got rid of their second through a bankruptcy when in fact they didn't, right? And so that was another condition. Now, there's a third thing that happened in this same time is even if let's say you had the means and you wanted to make the second, but your second was it was a variable fix, and what that means is that look, the first 10 years of your second, you had a really low interest only payment. Let's say 3%, right? And you made that interest only payment for 10 years. But at the end of that 10 years, it converted to a fully amortized fixed payment, right? And that payment might be at the market rate might be at 7.5%. So you went from like 3% to 7.5%, but now it's amortized over 20 years. And in the example I gave you, that payment might go from $300 or $400 a month to $2,500 a month. So even when you fully intend to make your payment, you were all good. All of a sudden, one month you woke up and you got a bill for $2,500 a month instead of $300. You said, "Oh my gosh, I can't afford that," and there's no way to refinance because you were upside down. And so all this led to this having this massive population of second liens that weren't enforceable or collectible that went dormant. They became zombies, right? They just disappeared. Now, what homeowners, since it's been so long, after so long a time, 10, 15 years, they think that that second has been forgiven. But little did they know, not at all. Not at all. Even if the company that originally had the second went bankrupt or closed, they most likely sold that second before closing. And at that time, back in 2008, 2009, 2010, lenders were selling their seconds, their pools of seconds that were non-performing for pennies on the dollar. So you could buy, and huge investment houses bought these seconds, and you might buy $1 million worth of seconds for $40,000. Now, there was nothing you could do with it at the time you bought it, but these people that invested in it were into the long play. They're like, we'll just buy it and see what happens. Flash forward to today. Home prices have doubled, home values have doubled in the last 5 years. There's record equity in America. It's incredible how much equity homeowners have. And all of a sudden, this zombie paper that's been sitting dormant for 15 years, right? Those lien holders go, look, these people now have the equity to pay me. I want my money, right? And so that $80,000 second that you took to buy the house in 2007 that you thought had been forgiven, that you thought had just been written off, all of a sudden you get a letter in the mail that says, you owe us $80,000. If you don't pay us $80,000, we will foreclose. And today, you more than likely have more than enough equity to pay it. You have probably triple the equity, that you need to pay that. And so you're in a really difficult spot because that is a legitimate lien. You borrowed the money. Now, you perceive not to have to owe it, but that perception is wrong. And so here's where I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted on what's right and wrong in this. You borrowed the money. You knew you borrowed the money. You got to pay the money back. That's part of what I believe. But then again, you've been duped. It's been silent for 15 years. You thought it was scrubbed off. It hasn't been on your credit report. And making matters worse, you may have not even been able to make the payment because the company that you knew who serviced your loan no longer existed. And so it's a complicated issue. Do you owe it? Do you not? Legally you owe it, by the way. You owe it. And then of course with all things, there's always a twist of evil. These companies, these scavengers that bought this debt for pennies on the dollar, of course, are now trying to inflict penalties and interest. Now that to me is just completely immoral and illegal. How do you collect interest and penalties on a debt you never tried to collect, that the borrower didn't even really know that they had, nor didn't have a way to make the payment? To me, that should just be criminal, and you shouldn't be able to do that. Because some people are getting notices that they owe their second, but let's say they owe $80,000, well, they're getting a bill for $150,000 with penalties and interest, which is just absolutely absurd. And I think there's absolutely no room for that. But going back to, you originally took the debt to buy the house, you took the risk, the market turned, you're not cleansed of the risk. In my opinion, you probably still owe it, although it's complicated because you haven't been in a relationship with that debt. So we get today, and all sorts of folks are now getting letters in the mail saying you owe money on that second that you took, and people are understandably freaking out. And the question then becomes, all right, what can we do about it? Right? Let's say I get a letter in the mail, that second I took out in 2006 that I thought disappeared in 2009. I get a letter that they're going to foreclose my house if I don't pay it back. They're charging me penalties and interest. What can you do? Well, let's just start with what we can do as real estate and mortgage professionals. The first thing is we probably need to start helping our customers, our clients, be aware of this. Like we need to include it. We need to include it in our newsletter, our communications. Hey, just a heads up, did you possibly take a second out on your house back in the early 2000s that you thought maybe was scrubbed? If you did, you may want to revisit this, right? You may want to see, was it scrubbed, right? You may want to just start poking around. How was that scrubbed and do you owe it? Like proactively. Second, if you did have a second and you think it may have been scrubbed, your responsibility may have been released or it may not have, what you may want to start doing is starting to budget money or put money aside to deal with that debt when they come knocking on your door, right? Because more than likely you can settle that debt, but you better steel yourself for that possibility that you have to pay it, right? And then the next thing is, and certainly, by the way, if you're in the situation where you were making payments and the lien holder disappeared or the servicer disappeared, just make payments into a savings account, because more than likely at some point somebody's going to knock on your door and want that money, right? The next thing is that I would advise every one of your clients, if they get one of these letters, hire an attorney. Hire an attorney that specializes in this. They can negotiate. They can help your clients from getting just absolutely taken advantage of. And then third, my sense is at some point some government agency is going to step in to protect the consumer, and so we need to stay pretty informed about what developments there are for protections for homeowners, because this certainly seems usury, and so we got to check it out. So the things are, first, start to socialize this concept with your customers, right? And start to include it in your conversations proactively as a way to add value to what you're giving those folks. If they had been making payments and quit payments, or if they think that they might still have a second out there, start to figure out setting some assets aside. Because one of the powers, if I bought, let's say, $100,000 second lien for $4,000, and I'm trying to collect 150, yeah, okay, I'm trying to collect 150, but would I be happy collecting 10? Probably, right? And so there's ways to negotiate. There's ways to shoulder your responsibility, but not to be totally taken advantage of. And if you have a little bit of cash on hand, you might be able to negotiate. Now, to what level? It depends on the lien holder and the situation. And certainly an attorney can help you negotiate that, but you're going to negotiate paying less than owed, certainly. But to be able to pay less than owed, you need to have the cash available. And as loan officers, that's where we can help reassure our clients that we can help them access their money necessary from the equity of their home to possibly have a negotiated settlement that will be far less than if they don't. And most likely, if you had a $100,000 lien and you were able to negotiate for $10,000, I would feel pretty good about that. I feel like I'd won, right? I negotiated in good faith. I made full payment in good faith. The lien holder, made a profit off of it. And now I'm free of the debt. But not only, so remind your clients that you can always take equity out to pay that off. Now, if I just got stung by a second, I might be kind of leery about taking another second. But nevertheless, there's that. And then absolutely, if I was a loan officer in my market, I would start to find out what attorneys could help my clients, because this is becoming more prevalent. And by the way, I'm posting a post on this in LinkedIn today. I think it's out at 8 o'clock. It discusses this topic. Including in discussing this topic, I cite two articles, one from NPR and another one from Kiplinger. I put links of both those articles in my post. The post goes live at 8 o'clock. So go and check out. That's another thing. You can use those two articles I think the NPR one's better. Use those two articles, send it in and include it in the newsletter to your clients. Just heads up, in case you're in this situation, give me a call. At the same time, if I was a loan officer, I'd be sourcing local attorneys that I could refer my clients to. That would be another value add. And so just, as we try to serve our customers for life, we got to get in front of their lifetime problems. We got to get in front of this. We can't just go hands off, good luck. Let's inform our clients. Let's find resources. Let's find attorneys for them. Let's stay up to date on how the government's reacting to this. Keep, up to date, in your news, in your Google News. It's becoming a bigger topic. I mean, the NPR and the Kiplingers, both major publications, published articles this week on the topic. I think we're going to see more. We're going to hear more about it. So that's my topic. Hopefully you found this helpful. Like you, like me, you may be conflicted on this topic, but our clients need our help. That's it. Thanks for listening. If you listened live, thanks so much. If you didn't listen live, go ahead and let me know if you listen on replay. I always appreciate your encouragement. I appreciate your feedback. With that, tomorrow, I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's my second part of my series of the new normal, where I discuss where I think real estate and mortgage is headed. And I got a lot of feedback from that last week, positive feedback. So check it out tomorrow. I'll be around the same time, 7:30. Have a great day. Thank you, everybody.